Good afternoon. It's 1:30.
Just to let everyone know.
So it is 1:30. The St. Johns County Cultural Resources Review Board meeting for Monday, August 14, 2023 is, I'm calling it to meeting to order. We'll take a roll call first for the review board members. Robert Olson,
Present.
Jana Jordan,
Here.
Susan Sheldra,
Here.
Blair Knighting, absent, Christine Newman.
Here.
And I'm Nick John Hockis, the chair at present. Okay. I would like to open the discussion for any general public comments for items not on the agenda. But before I do that, let me read the public notice for the hearing. The Cultural Resource Review Board serves as an advisory board which makes recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. This is a properly noticed public meeting held in accordance with requirements of Florida law. Members of the public will be given reasonable opportunity to be heard on propositions before the board as those items are addressed on the agenda. For public comments on matters not being considered by the board today, a general public comment period will be provided to address the board on matters within its jurisdiction. Each person addressing the board shall limit comments to 3 minutes. Persons shall not address the board or any member thereof unless specifically recognized by the chairperson to do so. Once recognized, members of the public shall address their comments to the board as a whole. Public comment is intended for the board to hear from the public and shall not be considered an opportunity to demand immediate responses from the board or its members. Board members shall not engage in dialogue with persons making public comment unless the question or comment is directed through the chair or made with permission of the chair. There are no public hearing items on the agenda today, so section 3 and 4 does not need to be mentioned. We do have our commissioner here today, Commissioner Krista Joseph. Thank you. And legal counsel for City of St. John's.
Yeah, Keely West,
Keely West.
Office of County Attorney.
All right. We also have Haley Barkley as a staff liaison and
Ryan Mallett.
Ryan Bausch is here. Okay, I will open up the floor for any general public comments for items not on the agenda.
Yes, I have one.
Okay.
I'm Sally O'Hara with Hastings Main Street, and I just wanted to thank Commissioner Joseph for coming to our event on Saturday on the historic presentation for Hastings. I think she was blown away by
I was.
it. So I want to invite everybody to our next event in Hastings, which is a pop-up market. And if you have a flyer to remind you, I've got one. But I also want to alert you to the fact that we're working hard in Hastings to preserve historic structures and identify them. And tomorrow we go before the Board of County Commissioners to seek a resolution of support for our Main Street application. And what our Main Street designation will do for Hastings is allow us a leg up in grant applications and future funding opportunities, as well as drive economic development for the Main Street area in Hastings. So I just want to give you those announcements.
Great. Thank you. Ms. O'Hara. Any other general public comments on any other subject? Okay. Next is approval for the meeting minutes from the June 12th, 2023 meeting, which were, I think they were handed out. Maybe some of you may have seen them. I read it through.
Hi, can you hear me? I tried to speak in public comment. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can.
Hi, this is Ed Slave, and I just want to thank all of you all for the excellent work you're doing for serving our nature and history here in St. Johns County. I'd like to thank Keely West for being here at our meeting, and I'd like to thank Commissioner Joseph. They say that Congress sometimes governs with raised eyebrows, and I know that as a result of the illegal forced resignation of Trey Alexander Asner, all of y'all have raised your eyebrows. And thank the Lord, we now have a new county administrator, a designee, acting county administrator, and we're fixing to get a national search for a county administrator. And hopefully that person will be sensitive to employee rights and responsibilities. And we won't have any more retaliation like we had last year when Mr. Asner was run off by the then county administrator. But I'm delighted to see in tomorrow's BCC agenda Canright House, which Mr. Asner had worked to preserve and protect, and which apparently he was canned for his protected activity on wanting to protect. Apparently, our county administrator was a little too KKK adjacent, and there were people who wanted to undo county commission and their unanimous vote to preserve Canright House. But we're on the right track, and I want to thank all of y'all for your work and your participation. And we need to empower our employees to do their jobs without fear or favor, including enforcing the land development code as it's written, not as the developers want it to be. And I thought it was really remarkable that Mr. Asner was actually told by his management at one stage that he was going to scare off developers by enforcing the law. It's time for the rule of law to embrace St. Johns County, and I'm here to help you. So call me anytime. It's Ed Slavin, 904-377-4998. We need to encourage our board members to blow the whistle when something is wrong and to praise the county administration when they do something right, which hopefully will be increasingly now. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Slavin. All right. Any other general public comments? All right. So the approval of the meeting minutes from the June 12th meeting are next.
Mr. Chairman, I read the minutes. I will move they be approved.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So Mr. Olson made the initial comment to be approved, and Ms. Sheldrup seconded. So thank you. Do we need to vote on those?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Ms. Jordan,
Yes.
Ms. Sheldrup,
Yes.
Ms. Newman,
Yes.
and yes from me, John Hawkins. Thank you. Okay. Next is an approval of the current agenda as it stands, which you, I think, all have a copy of. I'll make a motion for approval of the agenda.
Second.
Okay. Again, I think we have to vote. Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Ms. Jordan,
Yes.
Ms. Sheldrup,
Yes.
Ms. Newman,
Yes.
and yes for myself. All right. So we will move on to agenda items, with the first item being the proposed interview process. And do we have something that we're going to be?
So I can kind of open this up a little bit, and then I might pass it over to Keely for any extra questions. I think the first thing I would like to do, at the last meeting, Ms. Sheldrup brought it up. Staff kind of got directed to look into it and see if it was even a possibility. Keely set out the process a little bit for us. I would just think the first step would be to get consensus from all of you guys that you would like to even continue on with the conversation to get the process started, because then that conversation is going to become a much more in-depth conversation. So if we have consensus to move forward about the discussion, I think we can do so, and then we will have a presentation a little bit, some materials that Ms. Sheldrup provided.
Okay. So we need to make a motion to,
Just general
Yeah,
consensus.
I think,
Yeah.
consensus. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Then I think you guys should have all.
Before you
Yeah.
go into that, let me, from a legal point of view, let me lay out the foundation that we have before us. And so the process for consideration to become a member of this advisory board is established by the Board of County Commissioners. It's through their rules, policies, and ordinance codes. to include the Land Development Code, which created this board. And so ultimately, all members for any board or commission in the county are appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. You're merely tasked with making a recommendation. Even your recommendation, all of the applications, everything goes to the Board of County Commissioners, and it's their decision. They may or may not consent to your recommendation. They may consider district representation greater than some of the requirements, and so it ultimately their decision. The process established by the board for application submittal, review, recommendation, and ultimate decision does not provide for an interview process. And I think from a legal position, it would be outside your purview to enter into a process that's inconsistent with their rules and policies. I think that this does not preclude you from reaching out and speaking to each candidate individually. You can talk with each candidate. You can have discussions with them. You would simply need to disclose that as an ex parte communication before the item came before you. In looking at the process that's laid out, our Human Resources Department is not involved with our selection of applications. Those applications come from the Board of County Commissioners office, and they are reviewed by the staff up there before they come to you. So it's not a human resource item. I do think that you still, again, I want to reiterate that you have the ability to reach out to applicants and speak with them. But I think to have applications be narrowed down or whittled down is not part of your purview. I think that they all go to the Board of County Commissioners, so you may end up interviewing 2 people. However, the board rules also require that you look at each application equally, and so you would have to interview everybody, not just 2 people. Additionally, those applications stay in the queue. So while you may not select somebody right now, they may come around again. Those applications say active. We call it an active state for 6 months, and then they have an option to have them active for an additional 6 months. So they can stay active for up to a year. And it could be that at that time we didn't need somebody for a specific commission or district. Like District 4 is represented, District 2 and 3 are not represented right now. And so you have one, I believe you have 1 vacancy before you and 1 reappointment. So you may select a District 2 member now, but then a District 3 member later on. And so I just wanted to lay out how we came to the process that we have today. It's all dictated through our ordinance code, as well as the Board of County Commissioners policies and rules. So any changes to that would need to be implemented through them.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
Also, when I looked at the flow chart, I mean, it's great that you want to go to that extent to find the right person, but what happens is you lose people because it's become so intensive. And I'd rather make sure that we don't lose people because they are part of the community, and we want that fairness also going forward. And we do, when we have it in our packet, we do have everybody's resume there. So if there's something that we don't agree on, we can bring that up at the board. But I think you guys would be able to, weed that down. But if the process is too overwhelming or too much intensity for that applicant, we're going to lose the actual people who, I mean, you get paid. You get paid. We want to have actual community members that have the time to do this and to make the right decisions instead of overwork them in that capacity too. I'm not saying that I don't want someone who's qualified and good. It's just that looked like a very intensive flow chart. That's my opinion.
I'd like to respond to that.
Sure.
My understanding was that this board would vote to recommend on maybe the top 2 applicants. So it would not, as I see it, preclude anyone from applying or being considered. It was just, after having been considered by this board, a way of identifying the most qualified, the most committed and loyal and interested in the purview of the board.
Is there any response to that from anyone? Or
I don't know
Yeah.
what to say. I
Yeah.
agree. I mean,
I don't think from a legal perspective, I don't think the dispute is getting the most qualified. I think it's the process and what can and can't be done with regard to interview and process, the amount of time that takes, eliminating certain members and not interviewing other members. And so I think that's just not the process set forth by the Board of County Commissioners. So I advise to stick with the process we have in place. I think there's always discussion if there's an issue with regard to qualifications or some other process in the applications, but I think for right now, that is my legal recommendation.
I'd like to address that. You mentioned that it was inconsistent with board rules.
Right, so you're,
Commission rules.
yeah, so you would be initiating a process. I mean, right now, the application process is laid out in the rule, the review process, and the recommendation process.
Okay, so how are new processes?
So the Board of County Commissioners can, you can, through Commissioner Joseph, who's the liaison, I mean, you can engage them in trying to have a change to the rules or the policies.
In what way?
You can meet with them. You always are free to meet with any of the county commissioners at any time. I think Commissioner Joseph will agree. Meetings are very frequent in the office up there. So you can meet with all the Board of County Commissioners and engage them in conversations with regard to what you would like to see changed.
The thing is, when you want to change it to what you'd like to do, you have to get consensus of three votes. So you have to meet with all 5 commissioners, show what you'd like to do, and then if one of us brings it up that we'd like to change the process to find a member, then we show the flow chart and say that, yeah, this is our new, we'll adopt this for all our committees, kind of thing, right?
Oh, just further clarification, I don't have the LDC in front of me, but are you referring, let's see, this board makes recommendations to BCC. But is it explicit as to what this board can do and can't do relative to making that decision of recommendation? It must be in another area.
It's in the,
Because I don't think the language under CRB really gives any kind of detail.
correct, it is not. So what that would be, you would find that in the Board of County Commissioners
Okay,
rules and policies set forth the application process for all boards and committees.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Would you explain how we are to meet with individual applicants? Would it be in a forum like this, or?
So you could
You
call them up.
suggested that.
That's up to you. Each individual board member, you couldn't meet as a committee because that would have to be a notice public meeting with minutes. But you can call up any applicant and speak with them about the vacancies and speak with them about the committee.
Is it ever done with notice in the public where they could interview all 4 of them or 3 of them?
They can invite people to the meetings again. So if somebody couldn't, the problem is that's not part of the process. So it's, if they would like people to come and speak or come before the committee, they could, but you can't necessarily say, we're not selecting that person because they didn't participate in a process that's not part of the county process.
Got it.
If that made sense.
Got it.
And we also wouldn't want delay in getting people appointed. That's the whole thing. So this is only a 5-member board with 2 alternates. And so you have 5 regular members who can vote. And the 2 alternates are for the purpose of quorum. And so it's trying to get those positions filled as quickly as possible is always very important.
So the longer the process, the longer we wait. And we really want the public's input.
Okay, so my understanding is as it stands right now, we just continue the process as we have in the past with the option to individually.
You've always had that option. Correct. You could always reach out to anybody individually.
Okay, and my next question is, you mentioned that these applications do not go through any type of interview prior to, or not interview, but overview.
They do. So the Board of County Commissioners, their executive group up there, they look at the applications because every board and commission has nuances. Yours has certain requirements with regard to the area of historic resources and certain perhaps practical experience or educational experience in certain fields. Some do, don't. Some do, some don't. With regard to our boards, we have a lot of boards and commissions. So they look at those, especially ones that have specific requirements or criteria, as this one does, to just make sure they meet at least those minimum requirements before passing them along.
And also, they'll do a background check. We had a couple of really good applicants, but they had an arrest or something.
We'll do that. And every now and then, I think, given the amount of, sometimes they slip through, but generally speaking, so they do that first review. So they call through them and make sure they meet those minimum requirements before they pass them along to you.
Would you describe what the minimum requirements are? Because I understood it to mean the 7 or 8 criteria
Sure, I
that
can.
are listed, but.
Yeah,
But in our last session, and I think it may have been reflected in the meeting minutes, we were told by staff that not all 14 applicants met the requirements. So if there's culling going on, it did not apparently occur for this round of vacancies.
So I think generally they try to call those out. Sometimes it does not occur, and I think I admitted that, I stated that earlier. So basically under section 3.0.1.202 of the Land Development Code, appointees to the CRRB shall be residents of the county. That's always the first requirement. There are a few exceptions to that. Shall be qualified through special interest and experience or education in preservation of cultural resources, which is further defined below in the second sentence, which says members shall, when possible, have practical and professional experience in one of the more following fields: archaeology, architecture, architectural history, curation or conservation, planning, professional engineering, real estate, history, historic preservation, or related disciplines. Whereas some of our boards have no distinguishing factors such as that. And so normally when the applications come in, they look for these. And I think in a rare occasion, some of the things are broad, but I think generally with this board, they've tried to adhere themselves to those. Brian and Haley, you can help me with that. They've tried to adhere themselves to that criteria.
Well, as I say, if those were the criteria, and there are about 8 of them listed there, very few met them, Mark.
You only have to have one of those. You don't have to have all of those.
Correct?
So I have not looked at the application. Did you have a chance?
Yeah, there was, I think, a total of 13, 14 applications, which I believe we still made public for you guys to look at. But then there was another document that was just qualifying applicants.
Okay.
I believe it was 7. There is one person whose application has expired since, which I will get to when we're about to vote. So I think there's about 6 or 7
So they
qualifying applicants.
So you took all the applications and then you culled it down to the ones that met.
Yeah, real estate or
Okay.
history or anything.
Okay, so when we get to that, I apparently didn't see that.
Okay.
document. So when we get to that, can you identify the 7 who we should be considering?
Yes, I will. I even have some extra documents that I can pass around.
And what is the process for this board in selecting someone in terms of, is it a majority vote, is it a consensus vote?
So it's a majority vote. The five regular members are the ones that will always primarily vote. If the regular members aren't here, then the alternates may vote in their stead. So at this juncture, it looks like all 5 here will be voting, and it's a majority vote.
Do the listed qualifications take priority over what district they're from?
It's a good question.
Ideally, so some of our ordinances that create boards and committees are very explicit in that. Some actually have, we have one board that just met recently where actually the representative, the district council member from that district gets to appoint the person. So in this, it says when possible. So we do like to see district representation. Oftentimes, it's not a requirement in this board. Right. Yeah, so it's not a requirement, but they do like to see that. And so sometimes, that, like I was talking about earlier, the board member at the board meeting may say, the preference is to have representation. So it is something to consider.
Were you going to go through some information?
I think it depends on where you guys leave that. That was about the actual process. I'm not sure if we're going down that road.
I would like to, because I think we've been without numbers for a while.
So you're moving to agenda item 2, then the review.
I am.
Oh,
And,
okay.
yeah, I would like to open up agenda item number 2, review and recommendation of board members.
Yep.
Vacancy applications for 2 seats. Since we are making a recommendation, do we just vote on 2 recommendations, or should we do 3?
Believe it's just that for the 2 seats, you're going to recommend 2 total.
Okay.
For
I
each.
think you have a vacancy and a reappointment.
Yes. Yes. I have these for you guys. Again, I sent out the qualifying applicants document. There was one, if you guys have that, Amber Reader, that was included in that, but her application has expired. So if she was in consideration in your mind, she is no longer. So I can pass these around if you guys
Are these,
want to take a look. Those are just the qualifying applicants. I only have a couple copies. But I can bring it up on the screen as well.
What does it mean they expire?
The applications are good for 1 year.
Oh, thank you.
You wanted a second? You want to say? Just a second.
Except for now.
Excuse me, are you taking public comment before?
It's after Ms. Keys. And I do have a question for Ms. Keys. You do represent some people here in this. No, sometimes you will come in and speak on certain projects. Would you still be able to do that if you're a member of the? You look like you're in pain. Yeah. I'm a bad man. So my question would be that we've seen you here before. You're also asking to be considered for one of these recommendations. How would you reconcile the two?
Recuse myself,
You recuse yourself.
absolutely, which is standard state protocol.
Okay.
Any board member that has an item before the board that could procure to their personal benefit would have to recuse themselves. So if they represented a client, if they represented an applicant, or something of that nature, obviously you don't recuse yourself when you're voting with regard to your appointments or reappointments, but if you, because that's anything that would go to her personal benefit, I don't know what her job is, but if she had a project, then she would not be able to vote on that. And she would declare a conflict under state law. She would fill out a form, that conflict would go on the record, and then we would file the appropriate paperwork.
Just as information, the last meeting, I was here to represent 2 ad valorem tax exemptions in Hastings, so that's what.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to address anything first before we?
No, I think you guys are good to open up discussion, and however the process needs to go, I think anyone can say a name and state their recommendation. I will just reiterate from Keely, 1 is a vacant seat that you guys are replacing, and 1 is Blair Knighting's seat, and she has reapplied. So you guys could reappoint her, or you can pick from any of the applicants.
Oh, I'm sorry, you said Blair has reapplied?
She has reapplied, yes. So, but it's still the decision of the board, if I'm correct.
Well, I'd like to make a nomination, if I could, please, and that would be Dr. Leslie Keys.
I second.
Okay. It's gonna give all sorts of justification.
All right. I will open it for a vote. For the,
So at this point, you have a motion, you have a second, you might want to have board discussion, and then normally if you want to have public comment before your vote, that would be the time to have public comment.
okay.
This one.
So, any comments? Well, you want me to go through the whole, what you just mentioned, or are we good with that record?
I think we're.
Okay. All right, so I'll open the discussion up for any comments for Dr. Key's recommendation.
well, it's the most detailed as far as match with what the LDC seeks. So,
And she's also from a different district than all of the people presently on.
Correct. Okay. Any other comments for Dr.?
She has my strong and emphatic vote because of the match of all the requirements.
Okay. I would open it up for a vote then. Oh,
No, public comment.
public comment? Yes.
That would be me.
Hi, this is Ed Slavin. I'd like to heartily endorse the candidacy of Dr. Keys. She's a co-author on scholarly articles with my friend Tom Graham from Flagler College. I have several friends who took her course at Flagler College, one of the best history courses they ever had. And I think this board will benefit from her perspectives and her candor and outspokenness, which we need more of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slavin. And then Dr. Keys?
I wasn't sure what order everything was going in. So I understand that all of you certainly seen what I refer to as the short version of me these days, which is the consulting version. But since we have legal representation and a commissioner here, if you really need to fall asleep early, see me and find. But yes, I have an advanced degree in history, one in urban regional planning from Virginia Tech with a concentration in historic preservation. My PhD is in historic preservation. And I clearly was a child prodigy because I started this 45 years ago. Chris and I actually worked running a regional office for the state of Florida 25 years ago out at Government House. So I worked throughout all of Northeast Florida. I moved to Florida 40 years ago, actually right out of college. Still practice all over the state. I do a lot of resilience planning as well. And so Haley, I do Preservation Commission trainings. So we learn how to run board meetings and all of that kind of stuff. And we did that in Sanford, did the state conference this year, Preservation on Main Street, and Ocala. I also just did a training in Savannah, and then I'll be in Virginia Beach. So I do a lot of different things. The other part of that is National Park Service. I also meet the architectural historian qualifications on that to review National Park Service projects and documents. So anyway, if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer.
Okay.
So thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Keys. So this first vote will be for the vacant chair, and I would open up, well, we heard a recommendation for Dr. Leslie Keys. I'll open it up for a vote.
okay, so you have a motion.
Motion on the
second.
I have a motion, yes, to elect Ms. Keys as a recommendation for the board vacant seat. Mr. Olson,
Yes,
Ms. Jordan,
Yes.
Ms. Jeldrup,
Yes.
Ms. Newman,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. Thank you. I think we would, as someone mentioned, I think we would all benefit from Dr. Key's experience and background. So the motion carries. That recommendation will be made to the board, to the commissioners board. All right. I would the reappointment then. I would open that up for discussion. That'd be the reappointment for Ms. Knighting, correct? Who has reapplied, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
how long has she been on the board? Did she fill a vacancy?
She
She
did.
did a partial term. She just came on in July 19th of 2022. So she was filling a partial term for somebody who left.
Okay,
So this would be her first full term.
So yeah, so you would be reappointed, if you so choose, you would be reappointed for the first full term.
okay. I really don't know very well.
Well, my question would be kind of a background question is, how many of those meetings has she been to of all the ones that she was supposed to be at?
Well, I have only been here a couple months, so I know, I mean, she's not here this one or the last one, but I don't know previously to that. I can't speak to that.
Yes, so I was there for all of those meetings, and she had just the two absence.
Okay.
She was there for all the previous meetings.
I guess I would like to nominate her to refill the position. I think when she was here, she made some very interesting comments, and her background is certainly qualifies her for the position. I'm not sure what district she's from.
Fourth.
Fourth, yeah, we have fourth. We did. Oh, we did. Okay.
Okay, so so Ms. Newman has made a motion to, let's see, it would be for Ms. Knighting to refill the reappointment position. And I will open it up for a vote.
We have a motion, you would need a
Yeah,
second.
I'm sorry, I would like a second. Okay. Ms. Childrop, okay. So let's open it for a vote.
Yeah,
Public comment?
yeah, public comment.
Yeah, I'll open up the floor for any comment, any public comment we have on that motion.
I think we're good.
Okay. No comments, no public comments, so we'll open it up for a vote. Mr. Olson?
I vote yes because it appears there's a very strong match with historic preservation.
Okay. Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Ms. Childrop?
Yes.
Ms. Newman?
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. Ms. Knighting. So the recommendation carries to the commissioners. Thank you. Agenda item 3 has to do with 2023-2024 year meeting dates.
On the screen for everybody.
Right, so they are still the second Monday of every month at 1:30. Next meeting being October 9th, December 11th, February 12th, April 8th, June 10th, and August 12th of 2024. Okay, informational only, correct? Or do we need to, we don't need to discuss anything unless there's any?
Yeah, unless there's any
And public,
modifications
right.
or anything, but if that works for everyone, then we can send out the announcement, the advertisement to advertise for all these dates.
I don't know if October 9th is Columbus Day celebrated. That's a fact, it's right.
My husband's birthday.
Yes, it is Columbus Day.
Is that a county holiday?
Yes.
No, sir.
Does anyone have any issues with October 9th? Okay. Okay, then review has been made for those dates for the next 6 public meetings to be, again, publicized, right?
Okay.
Thank you. Next, we have agenda item 4, Canright House update, and it's a discussion item only.
So just really quickly, we talked about this last time. I like to keep it on the agenda for now, just so you guys stay informed on this process, because you guys have been a part of it since the beginning. The Canright House relocation has been funded. It was approved by the state. So county staff has been working with Parks and Rec Department, OCA. They've been getting everything together to kind of make that move happen, all the agreements that they need. This item will be going to BCC tomorrow on the consent agenda, just for the county to accept the donation of the Canright House and for the relocation. So that's where we're at in the process now. There hasn't been a set timeline yet, but again, I'm going to keep this on the agenda, or at least in staff reports every meeting, so I can keep you guys informed. So that's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yeah,
have a
Mr.
question.
Olson, yes.
obviously this structure is gonna be moved. Is there, what expertise is the county relying on to deal with the technology of moving a historic structure, making sure that the characteristics that made it significant are preserved?
So
Plus the way it's cited, in its new location, I assume that's all. I'm just curious how it's a preservation engineering / engineering task.
Mhm.
How is the county dealing with that?
So the Park Foundation is who received the funding for the relocation, so they're kind of in charge of accepting the money and getting the contractors in place, so they will be working with a relocation expert to handle all of that, and we'll just be kind of on standby for that process and to make sure everything goes smoothly. But there will be an actual relocation contractor that is doing the move.
I'm not sure, it may be someone else in this room, I don't recall that the secretary's standards include addressing relocation of historic structures. Does anyone?
Right, so, is it okay?
So with regard to the structure, the park foundations are the ones that are moving it, and the structure itself is not the historic, it's the event associated with it. And so they are actually in the process of hiring a project engineer project manager for that aspect of it. But I'm happy, Ms. Keys, if you had a comment with regard to that. I just didn't want to, it hasn't been designated a historic structure at this juncture. And so while there might be criteria, this is really related to the event, not the structure, because I think it's the age-wise, it doesn't meet historic for the age-wise, but I'm not sure.
Well, I think it's a combination.
Well, it hasn't been designated yet, so I don't think they would have to go through getting permitting or anything like that with related to it. Go ahead.
Again, I've been around a long time. 1980s, we were in Riverside Avenue Preservation. We were moving houses out of the way of hospital development. So fortunately, Edwards House Movers and Hygiema are still around. They still have done relocations. Most recently, the Florida Ag Museum adopted a house over in Davis Shores, in South Davis Shores, after Hurricane Irma hit, and took it. City took the property. The house was available. It went to the Ag Museum to become part of their property. So those two major house moving companies are still in business 40 years later. So I would encourage the county.
Well, it's not it's not the county moving the structure, it's the Parks Foundation, and so they gave their bid and their consultants, and so I think they had somebody lined up for that. What the county's providing is the landing place for the structure once it's moved. We're putting it on park lands, and then to operate it, even the Park Foundation is doing the future operation of the building.
Well, and Sally just said that Shorty Robbins, who happens to, in one of her many lives, be Cindy Stevenson's aide, but Shorty's moved buildings. We can work together.
Yeah,
for 3 years on that.
it's the Parks Foundation doing the moving.
Yeah, she's on that board of that Parks Foundation. So, but you have a valid point. As soon as it gets moved, it can be evaluated for
Absolutely.
register and a local landmark designation.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any public comment on this item? Okay. Thank you.
I'm surprised there's no public.
Let's, moving on to the next item is Vermont Heights, and it's again a discussion only. Now the FTP site did not have any information on it. There was an issue with it, correct?
Yes, we've had some issues with the FTP site. I have some of the information printed out if you guys didn't get a chance to look at it before the FTP site went down. I would really refer this to Mr. Olson. He's the one who brought it forward from a community member. So I'm not sure. I did do a little bit of research just so I knew the area, but that was really it, and I'll pass it back to you guys.
I'm not prepared to make the presentation, but I guess I thought that one of the residents of that area, I was at a county economic development focus group meeting about a month ago, 2 months ago, and ran into a gentleman named Thomas M. Turner. He goes by the name of Mark. he is a resident of Vermont Heights, and we started talking about the history of that, which is fascinating. And I really thought he might, or someone from that community might be making a presentation. I don't feel qualified to present on it, but it is a important part of the county's historical development. There are elements of that still in existence. It's part of the, I don't know what else to say other than I hope that this board can have a presentation on it. And if someone in this room knows anything about Vermont Heights, there are original structures. It was developed in the 1920s, and it's a platted out community. And so, and it's got an industrial connection. So anyway, that's all I have to say about it. I didn't know I was the presenter today.
No, I'm just open for discussion because, I mean, as far as staff goes, if anything in the area would come in for review.
Did I copied Mr. Turner on my communication to you? He was.
Yeah, I mean, we just got the information that he sent over. That was really it.
Oh, okay. I don't. Okay. Does anybody on this board know about Vermont Heights?
Well, I didn't know how it arrived on the agenda item, but I did some research and I discovered that Pulte, a developer, is planning on building a 360 single-family unit development across the street from Vermont Heights. So I don't know, and the board apparently approved that back in 2016 or something like that. So I don't know if that's part of the issue with Vermont Heights, but that's what I think.
Okay.
There were water use, flood issues that were, an analysis by the Department of Environment. All the county departments looked into that. That's part of the land development code and approved it. I did note that there is some, in an overlay of the development, there are lots of gopher tortoise burrows, many of them in exactly the area where it's developed. But
it's interesting. It's a county place name because it's a place name enough to have names along Route 207 that say Vermont Heights. And the residents tend to apparently identify, at least from what I was told by Mr. Turner, identify their community as being Vermont Heights. That's.
Well, it looks like it's part of Elkton.
Yeah, because it's unincorporated county
Yeah.
territory,
And
correct?
I just saw, I don't know if you ever want to have Greg Leonard give his presentation to this group, but he actually goes through this potato. It was like Las Vegas in Hastings and Vermont Heights, and I just heard the whole thing on Saturday, and I wanted to have my own party and have him be the presenter because it was really, if he can get it to 1 hour, I think you guys would benefit at one of our meetings. He has great pictures, these same pictures. There's some
He's got corresponding book.
how St. Johns County started and where we are today is just completely incredible. I was just blown away by it, honestly.
That would really be good, in part because I believe this board is going to be giving a lot more attention to the Hastings area and the agricultural heritage.
So maybe Haley, can you get him at one of our meetings? And I'll talk to him about it.
Certainly reach out. I will be meeting with him tomorrow about something unrelated, so I can definitely mention it. And
Well, tell him to get his thing down to 1 hour.
okay,
So
I will.
like an hour and 45.
But can you tell him to make sure he addresses
Yeah.
I can request that, sure.
But just the history of how St. Johns County started, and really, we were the place to be. Hastings and Elkton, before when the Dixie Highway came down, before they got cut off. So it's pretty interesting.
It is all part of that, let's feed everybody at the St. Augustine hotels.
It's the only reason you have fresh vegetables is because no one could have fresh vegetables, so they'd come to stay here in Florida. That was amazing.
Thomas Horace Hastings was a cousin to Henry Clyburn.
Question to staff. How can we find out what has been permitted for that area, possibly for development, and that are still have sort of open, valid permits, development permits? Can we do that? Because talking about it and trying to do something about it, if we can't do anything about it, although it's informational, it would be good to know if there's something coming.
Yeah, well, we do have a development tracker. The Growth Management Division does, or department. So that is available online. It depends on what type of development applications you're after. I know that there's a lot of existing legal lots of record, platted lots that are out there that are vacant. Some that do have historic structures on them with Florida Master Site File designations.
I think my question would be specific to the Pulte 360 single family
So,
home.
If you go to my District 4 newsletter, I
Okay.
put the development tracker in the first paragraph. All
Okay.
you do have to do is hit it, and you can see what's already been approved and what will be coming and what's being developed. And that's not on my agenda in the future, so I have a feeling it might be something already approved.
In addition, could you also, whenever we talk again about Lamont Heights, whenever Mr. Leonard comes in, could you run it, I guess a GIS to show us where all the known historic sites are in that region?
Yes.
And prehistoric as well.
Good idea.
Contact.
That 2021 survey, asset surveys of farmland, it has a multitude of
Where?
the 2021 historical asset survey for the farmlands, included Hastings, Elkton, Spuds, Armstrong.
Just a point to make here, the gopher tortoises are federally protected creatures. And perhaps Keely could advise us on what role this board might have
For gopher tortoises? None.
in.
None. So are you talking about the Pulte site?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
That's
they would have to get their federal permits and state permits with regard to gopher tortoises. I think they moved them, right? Yes, they would get a relocation and a take permit. They do.
I know.
I'm from Arizona. We had to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, any type of development like that, they would do the survey, and obviously they've done the surveys because you saw them on the map, and so then they would go get their federal and state programs for relocation and or take.
Okay, so before we close this item and before we open it to public comment, I assume you're going to be discussing with Mr. Leonard a presentation for that area.
I can definitely request that. I can't, of course, force him to come in and give a
Sure, that's
presentation,
I'll
but I
call
can,
him too.
yeah, there you go. I will definitely mention it to him tomorrow whenever we are meeting.
Right, with specific maybe information about Vermont Heights.
Okay. Yeah.
On his
And
discussion.
I will definitely, whether he comes or not, I will have a map prepared for you guys for next time with the structures.
Okay. And I will open this item up for public discussion, public comment. Okay, item is closed. Next item is board member reports. Board member reports?
I guess I have a question. Has there been any new things happening relative to the community center building proposed for Main Street in Hastings?
Yeah, there was supposed to be a June 27th, I think, presentation, correct?
I think we have some experts in the back of the room.
Yes, the deadline of having public feedback was July 31, after we had a June meeting in Hastings and the first version of the plans were unveiled. They went back to the drawing board, and as I understand it, the architects are now redoing the facade, basically. It wasn't the interior, but the basic exterior that needed to be in line with the historic flavor of the community. So we haven't seen them yet, but by the end of the month, we should have some rough outs and drawings. So we've been told by the library staff that things are still on track, even though we slowed it down a little bit. So the build out is expected to be by next June. So they'll do the bidding probably in January, construction and so forth. But by June of next year, there should be a structure here. If everything goes this way.
Do we know what do we possibly know when that new elevation review is by the public?
It'll be probably after August 31st. So in a couple of weeks, we should have something and it will be publicized and we will get the word out to the street network as well as I'm sure the county will too.
And just as information, since it's federal money that is doing this, they have not yet formally applied for review and compliance to the SHPO's office. They don't have a design to have any reaction to.
So it's gonna take a while.
Well, it could go very fast if the design they come back with fits within the historic district. But, yeah, that's, I checked on that. So that level of review has to take place too.
So the community's spoken and listened.
Yes, they did.
And Ms. O'Hare, maybe it was who, Dr. Keys, you mentioned Main Street Network. Is that a website?
No, we've got a very sophisticated communication network we've developed in 6 months, and it's effective. So if you have something you would like us to publicize or get out to the general public, we'll spread the word.
I'd like to know when the next presentation for the building
Oh,
exterior elevations
definitely.
is.
We will get that to you.
Would we get that through Keely and this
Yeah,
board?
I can send it to Haley and
Haley, excuse me.
if everybody would give me their email addresses, I can put you on the database.
Very good, thank you. All right, any other items on board member reports? Any comments? Okay. Next item is staff reports.
Just two things really quickly. The first thing, Ms. O'Hara already discussed during her general public comment, I believe. It is about the Hastings Main Street letter of support that they're trying to get from the BCC. That is going to the BCC because that application process requires it to be in a resolution form and not just a letter of support. So that will be on the agenda tomorrow at BCC. That's item number 2, just for your guys' information. And then my next item is about Fort Mose. This is I'm not sure if you guys have had any discussions about this. It's been kind of a long-standing effort to replicate the fort at Fort Mose. And the State Park Foundation has secured the majority of the funding, and they're hoping to break ground in January of next year. Last month I met with Julia Woodard, who is from the foundation. I met with her with each commissioner, including Commissioner Joseph. She was requesting some additional funding, and they're hoping to they have multiple bids out to multiple sources, so they're hoping to have that finalized shortly so they can kind of move forward with that process. It is within St. Augustine city limits, so this board will not review the plans in an official capacity, but I will keep you guys updated because I think that's a super awesome project. So I'll keep it on your guys' radar and just keep you guys updated on the timeline. So that's all I have.
I have a comment if you have time.
Yes.
I have 2 things on my radar. One is Fort Mose. A commissioner may bring that up tomorrow, possibly one that's in this room. And second of all, I really was entertained by the Switzerland Community Center, and I think it's really a cool thing they're trying to restore. And if they can't restore it, I think using parts of what is already there to build the community center as it was in Switzerland, I really like that, and I'm keeping my hand in that a little bit. I'd like to keep pushing it along. So
Is that the mid-century modern?
yes. It's one of those things that caught my attention, and so I want to keep following that. And it's in Parks and Recreation now, and I've been talking to Ryan about continuing to go that direction. I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Being rebuilt. So those are my 2 comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Joseph. And any other items? You said no other items on staff reports, so I think that brings our meeting to a close. And it is now 2:31, and we will adjourn the Monday, August 14th, 2023 meeting. Thank you, everybody. October 9th, I saw, right?
Yes.